Next slide. Next slides. Some issues about the framework, the rules. We have a chat function, and we would like to encourage you to use it throughout the webinar. And at the end, during the panel discussion, we will come back to all the questions. And we have a poll function, and we will, at the beginning and at the end, use this poll to make it a little bit more interactive. And to test this right away, we'll start the first poll, which is about where you are working, in which sector do you represent. So please make your choice. Okay, it's a good spread between academia, public, private. Still not all votes counted in, but yeah, almost 1/3 of each of the 3 sectors. Okay, thanks a lot. To start with, actually, we will have another poll right away, as this dialogue is now focusing on the role of open data in the sectors transportation, energy provision, and waste management to make smart cities climate proof. We would like to ask, how would you assess your knowledge about open data? So please choose one answer now. Okay, so there's a lot to transfer and to learn. I see we have medium to weak knowledge, and we'll see. Hope this looks different at the end, that you at least find this helpful and helps you to get into the topic and into the different experiences we will share. Okay, so at this point, I would like to hand over to today's host, Sibylle Simkute from the Institute of Environmental Engineering of the Kaunas Technical University. She will just give a short intro to the topic and the logic of today's of this webinar series. So please, Sibylle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second dialogue of this project, Smart Cities for Climate Mitigation. On behalf of Kaunas University of Technology Institute of Environmental Engineering, I would like to welcome you all. We worked really hard to design a topic that is relevant for different kind of sectors. We chose the topic of open data, but it's not about the data itself, but rather the mindset of openness. We will not try to discuss whether open data is necessary or not necessary. We would rather like to talk about how to use openness and the data that is gathered and that is made within the public sector and within the private sector available, so that lots of innovative solutions are created to challenge the climate issues that the world is facing right now. There will be 3 webinars, as you know. First one, we asked a few representatives from the public and private sector to talk about their role as a mediator, helping bring private innovations done in a private sector to the public sector, or to attract private sector to use the infrastructure of the public sector. Second webinar is about it will be about the private sector, where different startups will present their view and what kind of conditions are necessary for them so that they can develop their product in cities. And the third webinar is about the word from the government, from the public sector, where we will ask city, municipality representatives and then the governmental representatives to discuss what conditions, what they are trying to do, what our challenges are within the within the public sector, and what can be done more from their side, and how so that we understand the situation better. So we really hope that this will be useful for all of you. We are looking forward to the panel discussions in the end of each seminar. If you enjoy this seminar, please spread the word so that more people can access it. And yeah, I wish you a nice webinar.
Thank you very much, Sibyle. And to start with, actually, I almost hand over to our first speaker, but before that, we have another poll for you. And actually, she will talk about what we will choose in the next poll, and we will hopefully get an answer. So the next poll is about, from your point of view, which of the following statements is the myth about the open data? So it's a bit more to read. We give you a bit more time, and yeah, try to make up your mind on this. And while you're doing this, I would like to ask Gabriele already maybe to start screen sharing, so we can continue after the poll with your presentation.
Mes taip įdėjom. Taip įdėjom klausimą. Turėjo būti true, false, true, false. Ne? Ai, taip įdėjom kaip šį parašytą? Ai.
So let's see how it looks like. I will not interpret the results anyway, but it looks like that the first one still the one most of you choose. The publication of data will automatically bring benefits. So is this true or a myth? Gabriele Cepeliauskaite from the Kaunas Technical University Institute of Environmental Engineering. She will give us the baseline and insight to this question, and she's working especially in the field of sustainable development. So, Gabriele, please.
Thank you, Frank. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Gabriele Cepeliauskaite, PhD candidate in KTU Institute of Environmental Engineering. As all of you have already had a question about your knowledge about open data and the myths, so I will give you a short presentation and a brief review about what open data is, why it's necessary, what is the relationship between open data and smart cities, and what are, of course, the biggest myths about open data. So it is essential to begin with a clear definition about what open data is. And in scientific literature, open data can be described in various ways, highlighting a number of aspects. But in a broad sense, open data can be understood as data made by public sector, for example, government, organizations, researchers, and private sector, which is freely available and can be used, modified, and shared by anyone for any purpose. So here you can see the main aspects of open data. And first of all, we should focus our attention to data providers. That means public and private sectors. And in the beginning, open data was only related to public sector and open government by claiming its funding principles, such as transparency, participation, collaboration. However, times changed, and now we are talking about data which is opened by a private sector, which acts not only as data collector, provider, but also as a mediator and a user for innovative solutions. Also, open data is considered to be freely available for society and stakeholders, So from a legal perspective, it is licensed in a way that allows for both commercial and non-commercial use without restriction. Open data is funded by public money and is placed in public domains that it could be easily accessed by society and stakeholders. And another interesting fact is that it is published in a machine-readable format. That means openness from a technical perspective that ensures that that computer applications can retrieve the data in a structured way. And also what I would like to highlight is that for the data opening, we need a platform which could work as a service consisting of a combination of processes, people, skills, and systems. But I think the most essential aspect here is knowledge and information. Why open data is useful, what is the value of open data that could bring together society, governance, business, and research for one goal. So the availability of open data has grown significantly. Some main motivations are that open access to data provides greater returns from the public investment, which can generate wealth through the downstream use of outputs, provides policymakers with data needed to address complex problems. And of course, smart cities needs open data, and smart city is that city which investments in human and social capital, traditional and modern communication infrastructure is used for improving, advancing, and maintaining the contribution of economic growth and a high quality of life, with of course a wise management of natural resources and different systems, such as transport, waste, water, traffic, mobility, energy, and environment. And this integration enables system-wide effects to be understood, analyzed, tracked, and built into the different designs and responses that characterize urban operations, functions, and services. And now let's move to the myths of open data. And this part of presentation is based on qualitative research and interviews about open data challenges and myths with the representatives from a public sector. The first myth is the publicizing of data will automatically yield benefits. And some of you agreed that it is a myth, and that is true, because providing access to data is enough, and not providing any means to process data makes the publishing of data useless. That means that open data needs to be accompanied by an infrastructure which is able to handle the data in easy to use way to lower the user threshold. Myth number 2, that is all information should be unrestrictedly published. So that means that it's not true, because some data cannot and should not be made public. And here are a number of challenges, such as limited resources, the complexity of data structures, and difficulty to understand the data. Also, we have law restrictions, and the arbitrary opening of some data might result into a biased picture of the situation. So these are the reasons which prove that why sometimes data can't be opened and can't be freely accessible. Myth number 3, it is a matter of simply publishing public data. And it is wrong, because simply publishing data does not guarantee appropriate use and value from it. And this myth represents situations when organization just makes data available without additional activities. This requires that open data policy would be aimed at setting the right conditions and creating the right environment to stimulate open data use. Myth number 4, everyone can make use of open data, and this statement is not true, because open data requires resources, expertise, and capabilities to make use of it. It requires to use statistical techniques. We need a deep understanding of the underlying data and an understanding of the types of relationships. So this is the knowledge that cannot be available to everyone and might require considerable time and efforts to achieve. And the last myth is that open data will result open government. And in this place, it is necessary to say that there are a number of examples well known in the world, which work like a paradox, that more information does not necessarily result in better, more, how to say, democratic or rational decisions. More information can result even in less understanding, more confusion, and less stress. And that means that the data can be interpreted and shifted in various ways. It becomes one-sided and loses objectivity. So you have heard all these 5 myths explained in more theoretical perspective. I hope that this presentation gave you additional information about open data and its myths. And today we are more than thrilled to have representatives who deal with these myths every single day when approaching public sector with innovative ideas. And these representatives will share their practical experience by creating smart and climate-friendly cities in Europe. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriele, for this, explaining us the main myths and also illustrating it so nicely. Thanks a lot. We're coming to the Lithuanian experiences, and the first one is from the transport sector. Julius Norkunas, CEO of the Mobility Innovation Center, and yeah, there he is, and I hand over to Julius, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Frank, and good afternoon, everyone who is watching or listening. This webinar. I'm really happy to be here.
Julius, you should turn on the microphone.
Okay, my mic is on. Can you hear me? It should be okay now.
I can hear you, yes.
Perfect. Okay. So let me share the screen and show me a little bit presentation of what we do at the Mobility Innovation Center. And I think we will be happy to discuss later, about the open data questions during the panel discussion. So Mobility Innovation Center was established by 3 public companies, by Lithuanian Railways, Lithuanian Post, and Road Maintenance. And they all come under supervision of Ministry of Transport. And that was the idea, basically, that at the later stages, maybe the other companies can join, as well as maybe the private companies can join, and maybe we can, work together with the PPP projects, like private-public, projects. So we've been established now in a little bit more than a year, and then we've been going, into very interesting, functions or directions. So I'm going to talk to you today about, the 5 key functions what we're working on. So first, of course, we're focusing on the problem solving, and then basically we're helping, these organizations, our shareholders, to identify the challenges they're facing right now and where the innovation can really, maybe help them or to improve them, such are, the obstacles. Then, of course, the Innovation Center was established basically so we can share, because we see a lot of challenges. They're quite similar, between these organizations. All of them have the fleet, all of them, facing the digitalization challenges and et cetera. So the idea was, since we start searching some, let's say, solutions in the market, we can really share the knowledge between all the, let's say, all across these companies in the sector. Then Sandbox. So we launched the Sandbox. Basically, the idea is just to become more open, for innovation, to invite the startups, let's say, small and medium enterprises, to come and, test the products, test the innovation in our, let's say, safe environment, because sometimes it's not that easy to get the access, let's say, to the railway infrastructure, to the roads infrastructure, and etc. Of course, sector promotion, we'll touch a little bit on that, how we're working on. And then the last but not least, is just how we're looking, for these innovation proposals and what to do next. Because, just to find one of them is just not enough. We need to carry on the whole journey. So let's start with the challenges. So currently we already, help, these 3 organizations to identify the challenges, and we listed all these challenges on our website. That was the idea, like, we kind of become a bridge between the ecosystem and these, the big organizations in the transport sector. So we listed all these challenges on our website, and then the idea now is just basically to go and engage with the market, go and engage with the startups, the small and medium enterprises, and say, hey, we have these challenges. Maybe you have something, innovative, interesting solutions. Come and talk to us. We can help you to go and knock the right doors, or maybe to get, to talk with the right people, just to explain, how you can help, to bring these challenges and make this into opportunities. So just to name, some of them. So for example, we have kind of called a dynamic route planning. Basically, it's helping, for their road maintenance company to decide which routes are now more, let's say, in the worst conditions. We need to take care of it. Then we have another challenge, which is last mile delivery. Of course, that's a post and the parcel, and we see a lot of, many startups, coming to this direction, and they'll say, okay, maybe we can collaborate. And we did very good pilot just by the end of last year with the startup called the City together with Lithuania and Post. So we see a lot of, potential and collaborations. And then, of course, at the same time, these organizations can understand and learn how they can, shift the, let's say, maybe some services or maybe the operations into the new direction and implement these innovations. The other, of course, is the fleet. Already touched a little bit. So everybody has a fleet, so let's say road maintenance has like, 2,000 different types of vehicles. So we need kind of, get the data, how to run them more efficiency, how to maybe reduce the fuel costs, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of challenges in there, and we'll list a little bit on our website as well. And then another example, of course, is sustainability. And that's where we have very interesting challenge here, especially with the Lithuanian railways, where we have railroad ties, they are already impregnated with chemicals. And we're looking basically for the solutions, how maybe we can use the biotechnology to remove these chemicals and maybe to use that ties, for their, let's say, another sustainable cycle. And we already opened the call, and looks like, we're gonna start very interesting pilot, together with a biotechnology company, how we can remove these chemicals out of these railroad ties. And of course, there's a lot of more like listed on our website, but the idea is basically we're trying to look how we can really, put these challenges together across our sector companies. And we see a lot of, correlations and a lot of the similarities. So that's what we're looking, for these innovations, and maybe we go and bring the value for our shareholders. At the same time, we'll take a look, and in some cases, how we can really go and find these innovations. So for some, let's say, projects, we even created dedicated project, dedicated website. For example, we have the project called the accessibility. So how to make the public sector and trains, let's say, available, for all people with their, let's say, special needs. And we even we did a hackathon just a few weeks ago, digital hackathon. So just to go and find, innovative solutions, how we maybe can improve in digital way the current infrastructure. So it's many different ways, how we can go and targeting these companies, just to bring these innovations. But the other angle is the sandbox. So I want to talk a little bit about the sandbox as well. So the idea was the sandbox just to open up our infrastructure and start to making these collaborations between SMEs and startups together with the big transport organizations. Since we have a lot of infrastructure, so of course that's a good need for the startups and SMEs. So that's to say, okay, we can provide this testing environment. If you need, we can provide some working space. If you need, we can provide, let's say, railroad rack. We can provide some parts of roads wherever they can need, because that's a big value, I think, for the startups and maybe small and medium enterprises who want to test, the new innovation. Maybe they need to do the pilots and etc. So we say we open, we want to come and collaborate, because at the same time these organizations can see what happens into this field. Maybe there is something new and much better way you can run your operations, and then say, okay, maybe we can start and implement. So the second pillar is a mentorship. So if you start and apply for the sandbox regime, you can basically tap into our network of expertise, because lots of people been working maybe for years, and they can really give you advice how you can maybe carry on and develop your sensors, your digital tools, and etc. etc. The finance, so we don't finance ourselves the actual project, but basically we can really help you to attract the finance. Since we're creating our network, we collaborate a lot of the venture capitals with the different organizations who can really provide the financing. So we can really help you and to find the path, how you can get the access to the finance. And at the same time, since you're collaborating, with such organizations, so of course everybody will be happy to see that you have kind of a first of your customer, either Lithuanian Railways or Lithuanian Post, for example. So of course it's very reputable. And of course, the last but not least is the experts network. So we're working with the very similar organizations, as we are here in Lithuania, but we really have the access, let's say, to the Germany Deutsche Bahn Mindbox. We really have an access to BMW Startup Garage. We have the access to their Israeli company called the Drive Tel Aviv, and they're working in very similar ways. And I can assure that basically the challenges we are facing here, it's very, very likely that the same challenges facing our peers in other countries, across Europe and maybe even globally. So we can help you to get connecting, with these centers, organizations, and the startup or maybe SMEs, can really scale, their product much faster way. And for the sandbox, basically all the companies can just go and check our challenges, and of course you can, if they're working on very interesting innovation, they can just submit an application form on our website, and then we're gonna evaluate and then come back, and then maybe we just can run the pilot all together. And the idea of the Mobility Innovation Center, of course, is just basically to become a hub, to become a real center where we can really, create these partnerships and connections. So in this slide, you see many different type of connections we're already making. We have already hundreds of these connections, like venture capital, startups, corporates, as I mentioned, very similar networks in the hubs, maybe you need an access, let's say, to their Dutch counterparts, maybe you need an access, let's say, to the French railways, or maybe, to their Finnish post. We have these connections, so we can really help accelerate, your innovation further. And of course, the idea, once we are quite open for this innovation, we will see the first, these innovations happen in the market, and maybe we can benefit the most. And of course, accelerators, maybe we can put you in the right accelerator program, so you can really go and shape your product, to the necessary scale up, stage, and then we can see what's going to happen afterwards. So this connections and partnership, I think it's very important and very valuable as well. And last but not least, since we're backed by a public company, so of course the procurement and the public procurement is very, very important thing. So since I mentioned in the very beginning, so once you go and find innovation, of course maybe you run the pilot, and then it's okay, the question comes up, so what's next? So that's what we're helping, we're working right now on this. We call it Innovation Procurement Roadmap. So we're basically helping and advising the companies, so which methodology they should choose, how they should go and acquire this innovation, or maybe just to start this do, let's say, R&D, stuff. So the pre-commercial procurement, there's one angle, and there is a lot of, a good publicity by the Science, Technology and Innovation Agency. It's called MITA here in Lithuania. But of course, there are more good examples across Europe, especially on the public procurement innovation. It's called the PPVI program. And very good examples. And we just really recently launched the hackathon I mentioned. And at the same time, we try to have a look and evaluate, so how we could put this hackathon, in their public procurement, process, and how we can keep going these collaborations with the winners, and how we can maybe, develop these products, after the hackathon is finished. So there are really good, the cases we already experienced, and it's really possible to run the hackathons together with the public procurement framework. I don't think that's a really big thing, you know, for the public sector. Or in some cases, you need to understand, you know, maybe the public procurement is completely enough, but that was the idea of the sandbox, you know, since you can start piloting, you know, maybe with the SMEs or startups, this new innovation, new products, you can learn and understand what needed, you know, for your operations in the future. And then you can just better basically prepare for your next public procurement, so you understand what's available in the market and what can you buy. So, and then we're going to launch very soon, I think, another thing, it's called the project design, and in terms of the public procurement, and that's what we're working now with the road maintenance company. So how we can really solve this uncertainty basically, and how we can really buy the innovation what's coming up in the future rather than existing products. So it's very interesting, I think, journey we're going, and it will be very interesting to share across other organizations as well. And just basically to follow us and to see all these, you know, information, the challenges, the sandbox, you know, you can go and visit on our website. Please follow us on the LinkedIn, on the Facebook, where we keep sharing all this information and maybe new projects and new pilots as well. And just basically get in touch. So we're quite open, and we can maybe help you to open the doors. So thank you very much.
Julius, thank you very much. Very impressive what you presented, and seemed that you did it in 1 year's time only. So we're looking very much forward to get some more insights later in the discussion. I would like to hand over to Emilia Karpaite from the Ignitis Group. She's an innovation expert in that group, and we're coming to the energy sector. Emilia, are you ready? Would you like to share your screen and start your presentation? Emilia, can you hear us? Emilia? Okay. We hope that Emilia gets ready soon.
Hello?
But
I'm sorry,
have you.
I had some problems. Maybe you can already see me and hear me.
Now I heard you.
I think I have problems with sharing my slides, but maybe I can do without them, if it's not a problem.
Okay, just go ahead. Sure.
Okay, sorry for the inconveniences. So I'm Emilia, I'm from Ignitis Group, and today I was invited here to present you benefits of open innovation and maybe to inspire to apply it in your companies or organizations. I have been working with Ignitis Group for 5 years now, and for a few years we started innovation initiatives, and it's based on open innovation methodology. So I want to share how we use it, why we use it, what value it brings to the company, and I will present 4 specific programs which we manage in our company group. So maybe shortly to present Ignitis Group. Ignitis Group is one of the biggest energy company in the Baltic region. It is a state-owned company, and it covers 4 main segments of activities. So first one is generation. It runs largest capacities of electric power production, hydropower plants, combined cycle units, pump storage plants, and etc. Also, we have renewables, and it's concentrated on energy production from wind, sun, biofuel, and waste. Distribution. Lithuanian distribution system operator is owned by Ignitis Group, and it distributes electricity and gas among Lithuania, and also commercial organizations. So commercial organization supplies customers with electricity and gas and offers a variety of services for the customers related to the energy sector. And now we are focused on expanding these commercial services and to suggest more services to the customers. So as you can see, the company's activities are quite broad. And when we were talking, we were thinking about innovation and what model we should adapt. It was quite interesting because we needed to find a flexible solution because we have we have commercial services, we have distribution. There's a lot of technological improvements. So it was a challenge at that point. In general, why do we need as an organization to innovate? So in order to stay competitive and to not to miss any technological improvements or to meet new client needs, we needed to make some changes as well. Also, energy sector is shifting and changing because generation is shifting from centralized to decentralized. Consumers are becoming more active. They are becoming active prosumers, and that there is a huge need of new platform services here. Also, system itself becomes more flexible, and a lot of services has to be there as well. So because of all these reasons, we needed to react, to analyze a lot of solutions and to find which solutions could bring the biggest value to the company. And a few years ago, Ignitis Group started these innovative programs. The beginning was not so easy or clear because we knew that we need to take new measures, but the challenge was to find the ways. But I think the main thing that helped Ignitis Group as an organization to innovate, to start the innovation processes, it was the culture of the employees and their maturity to changes. And I think the most important thing is the top management support, involvement, and understanding that we need to take risks to create something new. So we had that from the beginning, and it was really helpful. Now we have innovation team of 5 people. I manage open innovation programs, which purpose is to attract innovative ideas, and then we analyze it, conceptualize it, and we try to pilot them internally. And we just try to find the most valuable solutions that we could launch and make as business as usual in our company. When we started constructing innovation program, it came quite naturally that some initiatives stood out. Some of them were because internally people were already doing something in some small scale, and some were from external partners or companies or startups that they already asked us to cooperate in a specific way. So we quite naturally built the Ignitis Group innovation initiatives on open innovation methodology, but in the beginning, I think we didn't know that we are doing that on open innovation methodology. So maybe shortly I could just tell from our perspective what is open innovation, because how it differs from like closed innovation, so-called. So the main difference is that open innovation has this decentralized approach that you use not only your internal resources, knowledge, people to solve your business solutions. So as Julius already mentioned, Sandbox is one of the open innovation initiative as well. It could be from the methodology, the open innovation initiative. So when you attract people from outside to help to solve your ideas, you can cover some of your costs. You can solve problems faster. These are maybe some of the advantages. Not to spend a lot of time telling about the methodology or sharing my ideas. So in case anybody is interested in sharing more ideas about open innovation methodology or initiatives, feel free to contact me afterwards, and I will be happy to share my ideas or perspective. So now I would like to present 4 main initiatives of Ignitis Group, Open Innovation Initiatives. So first one is open funding. Now the slides would help me a lot, so apologies. Open funding is initiative of Risk Capital Fund, smart energy fund powered by Ignitis Group, managed by Contrarian Ventures. Fund already invested 4.1 million into the 15 different startups related to energy sector. They're creating solutions for energy sector. Fund managers provides us a huge deal flow to analyze and to pilot and to find the solutions which we could adopt into our company. The next initiative is open culture. Generally, it's initiative for sharing knowledge internally with the colleagues, as well as organizing hackathons. We are organizing hackathons, internal and external. Internal hackathons are used more for processes, improving them, digitalization. External hackathons are used more for new services, new ways for energy, new solutions. We already had 2 external hackathons, and this September we are planning one more. We are planning to do it with Energy Ministry this year, and also this year there is a new project for regulator sandbox for energy. So we hope that this could also help our hackathon, and we could find even more solutions to test during the event. Other part, and maybe today it's one of the most important here, is open data and open infrastructure, so-called sandbox. So we started Sandbox initiative a few years ago. Firstly, we created it only in our distributor system operator, but we received a lot of inquiries from the startups and companies that they would like to apply to the program to different activities of our group. So we made it bigger now, and now Sandbox is applied to all the company. Regarding open data, half a year ago we started Open Data Initiative, and we wanted to share the data sets which we have. This one is still very challenging for us because we want to generate quality content. We are a big company, we have a lot of data, and we need to check the quality of it. We need to see if it's not a national security threat because it's energy sector. We need to see if it's not confidential because there's a lot of commercial secrets could be found from the energy data, and also if there is no personal data revealed. So we are still having quite a challenge, but we are working on that. I believe like that in a year we will have a bigger data sets and we could share some greater results. But still we see the importance, and we are always very open to discuss with the startup students, academy companies, what data they would like us to open, and then we start working on this data as well. So if you have any comments or suggestions for us, we're really open to hear them, and I hope you will share them. The next stream is partnerships. So basically it's cooperation with universities, with companies, sharing the experience or creating R&D projects. Each cooperation is analyzed separately, and we just find the best way how we can cooperate in this case. So to sum up, all these initiatives generates company quite a large stream of ideas. Now we count that we have in 2 years we found 400 innovative ideas. And the challenge here is not to get lost among them, because we want to analyze each of them. We want to try to make a concept. We want to pilot them. So we are spending a lot of time to choose which ones can bring a bigger value to the company. As a greatest example, it's our new project. It's a complete new service, Saulės Parkai. It's a service for customer to buy or rent remotely a solar panel it's remotely somewhere in the Lithuania. You can choose where it is, and you can use it for your own consumption. More about this product will on Friday, on the seminar on Friday, our Ignitis CEO will tell you more about this service. So if you are interested in it, he will tell you the path they went from to create the service. Also, ignitisinnovation.com, we are always sharing our information about the newest projects, newest pilots, newest solution we tested. So if you are interested, you can check something there as well. So what, to sum up, I really want to stress you that feel free to contact me or my colleagues in case you have any ideas or some ideas on cooperation. We really are looking forward that, and if you are creating some interesting solutions, or you know somebody, you can always as well share the contacts of ours. And thank you for giving the opportunity to share our experience. I hope it was helpful or you heard something new.
Emilia, thanks a lot. Also without slides, very interesting and clear what kind of processes you are driving in your innovation group. Thank you. We're coming to the next and last of the first section, the Lithuanian experiences. We're staying in the energy sector. Vidmantis Janulevicius is with us, the chairman of the Smart Energy Digital Innovation Hub.
Yes,
hello, Frank. He shared the screen already, so it's ready to go.
Yes, hello, Frank. Hello, colleagues. Nice to be there. Nice to represent our thoughts about Smart Energy Digital Innovation Hub and how we are connected more or less to the smart cities. That's mean the Digital Innovation Hub. We really, before to create this Digital Innovation Hub based on Lithuanian Confederation of Industrialists. Yeah, we are mostly industrialists and we are part of Business Europe. That's mean mostly we are looking to the possibilities to combine our production, our let's say things which we are producing, how we can convert standard energy sources to renewable things and to use the most intelligent mentality from our companies to convert to the digitalization and as well to the, again, I will repeat that, to the green energy. And you know, it's not often when I'm applause to the politicians, and during the whole my life, just once, I do this and I stand this in front of Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen when I listen this March her speech in Brussels during the opening days of the Business Europe, and it really fully suits our thoughts of Confederation of Industrialists and our policy. At the same time, I'm the chairman of the Energy Committee under the Lithuanian Confederation of Industrialists. We need to create Europe, to create added value inside our countries, our EU, and these values must be done by us. That's mean we need to reduce possibilities to use the fossil fuel, because fossil fuel, not so many countries from EU receive the fossil fuel, mostly we import this fossil fuel. And of course, the major part would be to reduce this possibility as much as we can and to reduce the CO2 emissions. At the same time, if we will produce more things and will transfer green electricity from wind, solar, geothermal to the green heating, cooling, and smart solutions, of course, we will reduce the consumption of the fossil fuel. At the same time, we'll reduce the CO2 emissions, and we will create more added value inside our countries. Less import, the bigger the gap for our created value inside. I hope all our colleagues understand this. And this is the main train how to use that. We are working before to create the Smart Digital Innovation Hub. We worked mostly 11 years on the renewables, on the different sources, mostly with solar. 5 Horizon projects we participated, and our main things, you know, it's to combine green electricity to green heating and cooling. With the solar and wind, we can produce green electricity. With the new generation of the heat pumps, when we are creating together with Wiesmann, well-known German company, and in partnership with Samsung and Panasonic. We are on the final stages to create new heat pumps, which can increase the temperature very high, quite high, because maybe a lot of colleagues already know what the heat pumps are mostly working in the range of 30-40 degrees Celsius temperature. They produce this heating energy in efficient way. Let's say one kilowatt of electricity, we convert to 4 or 5 times of heating, yeah, SOP, we call this SOP. And with the higher temperatures, unfortunately, it was impossible. Now we have this solution, how to increase the temperature and how to use the renewable energy sources inside the cities. This is a very important part, you know. As we know, we can increase the temperature to 70-80 degrees. We can incorporate the new generation of the heat pumps inside the city heating and to reduce the CO2 emission for the cities. Now we started to do this with the 2 small cities in Lithuania. It's under our own project. And we hope that in the future, we will have possibility to offer solutions for the bigger cities. And mainly it's to use the advanced technologies. We are one of the startups, or not startups, but let's say one of the first who implemented bifacial solar panels with the tracking systems, which produce up to 50% more energy from the same electricity, more electricity from the same installed capacity of solar farms. Then we transfer this to the new advanced heat pumps, and of course, digitalized energy management systems and of grid storage. With this, all 4 solutions, we are able to provide to our cities really the most smartest, the most efficient solution to heat up, to cool down the premises, to charge the e-vehicles, and to, of course, based on all the solutions, to receive the data, about consumers, about prosumers. That means it's a lot of possibilities. And at the same time, let's say smart energy distribution networks, it's based on the remote energy use infrastructure. And at the same time, Digital Innovation Hub, creating now the platform for the second, let's say, second market of CO2 emissions. Because we will produce a lot of CO2 emissions, we will reduce CO2 emissions. That means it will be as a certificates. We are constructing now the new platform, which will be able to trade on it inside EU. And of course, it will have the benefits for the middle-sized and small-sized companies and cities to play the role inside all CO2 emissions. That's been our idea. It's that any small company or any small city would participate inside CO2 trading, would receive the benefits from that, and will try to reduce the CO2 emissions. These are most general things. It's mostly, you know, CO2 reductions, 0 CO2 emissions by solar, wind, and geothermal energy mix. I already talked about that. What we really already done, we installed just last year in Ukraine our first new solar farm, which was first installations inside the Europe to use this new efficient technologies. That's been bifacial solar panels with a tracking, special tracking systems, eye tracking system solutions, which increase output of the same installed capacity 50% in Ukraine, in Dnipropetrovsk region. World Bank is tracking this, our generation, every month. We are following our plan. By now, we always stays around 45-50% more energy than the traditional solar farms from Germany, from Japan, from anything. And this electricity is very important with the tracking system to understand what we are balancing the grid. We are balancing the grid inside the cities because we produce the energy during the day when there is the biggest consumption. At the same time, tracking systems produce the energy from earlier morning at the maximum capacity because we always have 90 degrees corner directly to the sun. That means we increase the efficiency. We have produced energy from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the evening during this time at the most efficient way. And this electricity we immediately convert to the advanced heat pumps, which increase efficiency up to 8 times. That's mean in totally from the 1 kilowatt of electricity produced green by the solar, we can convert this to the up to 8 kilowatts of heat, which really drastically reduce the cost of the heating. At the same time, we can produce roughly till 3 times the cooling. And you know, the cooling is very important and more expensive than the heating in general. And it sprays much more CO2 emission than the heatings. Okay, smart energy ecosystem enablers. Smart governments, governmental support, building infrastructure and legislation. Smart municipalities, decreased electric and heating energy costs for final consumers. Smart businesses, digital innovation hub as a driver of smart energy programs. And we just want to say what in the future to operate and to convert, for example, we are talking now, maybe colleagues already know, we have the former nuclear power station Ignalina, which was shut down in 2009. And the Smart Energy Digital Innovation Hub, the main attractivity to use green technologies and to exchange, let's say, the energy sources. That's mean instead of nuclear power reactor, you can imagine there is a lot of grid which was constructed in the last 30 years. It's very difficult to reinstall this grid, or let's say to take it out. That's mean without the reactor, we want around these nuclear power stations, now we want to do the project, to install the solar farm, to produce the energy and to use already existing grid, to install the wind farms, at the same to use the already existing grid, instead of heating, mostly because, you know, you need to cool down the reactors, and all the cities which support the nuclear power stations around, they're mostly heated with these heating systems from reactor, because you need to cool down the reactor. Now everything was shut down, and some cities in Lithuania really have a terrible situation because they need to install additional heating systems for that to heat up the premises inside. Our idea, instead of these energy sources, to use wind and solar in combine. That's mean wind and solar, they support each other, and we can provide up till 72% of the energy, stable energy delivering during the year. Just 30% of energy we need to balance. And instead of heating, which was before used at the reactors, we installed the new heat pumps. That means we convert the area, we convert this form of fossil fuel or nuclear fuel to the green energy solutions. Now we are doing the same with coal factories, you know, because we need the same things to use the existing grid to convert existing fossil fuel operations, which is really very, very popular was in Poland, for example, and in countries around. We have up to 20 fossil fuel coal factories with a capacity more than 1 gigawatt to convert them to the new renewable energy and to use already existing grid capacities, not spend the money on that, but just to convert. And at existing situation, now we are 3 Baltic states and Poland. Smart Energy Digital Innovation Hub has a branches there. Ignitis are inside. The lady Emilia, which represent the Ignitis, are inside our Digital Innovation Hub. And 3 Baltic states and Poland, we try to combine all our energy sources. You know, we are under the synchronization process to be synchronized with the continental Europe. And of course, in the future, we would like to expand our nice green thoughts with the Scandinavian countries and to create the digital market of the safe CO2 emissions in all Baltic state region. This is our general idea and our vision, and slightly we are going there. Mostly that's it. I hope I was in time, and was very nice to discuss with you, and carefully will listen the next things. Thank you.
Irmantas, thanks a lot. Very interesting, and in time, even better. And we will come back to also to your presentation, as all the speakers by now will join our panel at the end. And now we increase the challenge a bit. We have 3 short presentations by our project partners about platforms and systems that help to link public and private sectors. And each of you, just 5 minutes, just a short insight, and we will start with our colleague from Riga, Kristaps Kaunas. He's from the city of Riga, and he's an regional planner and sustainable development expert. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Unmuting helps a lot. Hi, hello, everyone. Can you see my presentation? It should be there.
Yes, full screen.
Okay, excellent. So I'm here to share our experiences in open data in Riga, and since we don't have such an experience here, or not that much to talk about, we will also cover a little bit of our state situation, and I will give you a short overview of the regulation, what's going on in the country and the city, and well, the challenges that we are facing or trying to solve at the moment. So not going forward. Okay, now it is. So we have all kinds of regulatory papers in place. So all of the EU directives, we submit data to EU data portal. Most of that is automatically. We are part of Open Government Partnership, and since 2019, we also have open data strategy on the national level, which states all of the right phrases and all of the good intentions. And we have a centralized state-driven data platform that hosts, as you see here, about 400 data sets from about 80 publishers. And when we look on the EU open data reports, Latvia doesn't sit in a bad position. It's above the average, in some cases even above the neighboring countries, which is something to be proud of. But when you go into the details, like here, we're being gratulated for being one of the countries that most of the governments and the regional, let's say municipal governments conduct open data initiatives. You start to question the report's accuracy, or maybe you start to question like how well are they participating. This is still from the same report, which states that in all aspects we are above the average. However, we have some difficulties that when we go into the details, we start to figure out. We still find out that most of Latvian public sector bodies are still commercializing the data. They are still selling it, and significant part of the revenue comes from that source, which also explains why they are kind of reluctant to open the data. Data anonymization and structurization requires some extra staff and funds, and of course that is something they haven't achieved yet. Also, the awareness is something that we could improve in our regional municipal bodies, and technical improvements and technical implementations are something that should and could still be improved upon. I shared this slide, which comes from last year's end. There was a hackathon in one of the municipalities, and it gives you kind of an overview of who's playing in a field. So if I'm being seen here, we have some state institutions, we have a few municipalities, like 4 of them, and we have the organization that goes with open data, and we have some IT companies here. So it's pretty much it, and some universities. Sorry, guys. So I missed them. And that's pretty much it. And so let's see if I can clear this. Let's clear all the drawings and stop drawing. Let's go on. However, some municipalities still or are contributing to this open data. However, this is mostly air quality sensors or motorist, cyclist, or pedestrian counters. And if we go into this website, which is Open Data Government, you can sort by the organizations that are contributing. You can look through here and you can see that most of the organizations are some municipalities and the state ministries. And you can't find a lot of from Riga city here. So, and those municipalities who are contributing mostly are contributing the data from, as I mentioned before, the tourism flow counters. However, it's not all that bad. We have some examples like University of Latvia and Latvian Mobile Phone, who have created a large platform for cooperation on the mobile data. It's not that open, to be honest, but technically everyone who's interested can join in. And we have some activities that that show the upwards or improvements in Riga city as well. And here I'm happy to share my colleagues' work that is going to be open in a month, so 1st of July, and that's a mobility point in Riga. So I mentioned that in Latvia we have this open data portal, and we have all of the infrastructure here. What's the problem then? Somebody might ask. So the problem is that the open data portal doesn't really have all of the legalization, or let's say legal structure for everyone to be committing to it. It also has some technical difficulties that not everyone wants to use the infrastructure it provides. And that's the case in this project. Happily, the guys who are doing this project will join us on a third seminar, hopefully, and share their own experiences, but I will share a little shortly. This is one of the last slides. This is a mobility point in Riga. As I mentioned, it's going to be a set of counters and sensors. It is a test bed. It's going to be an infrastructure for everyone to join in. You can set up your sensors, and you can use the infrastructure, and you can test whatever you are trying to achieve, as long as the data stays open. And these guys are trying to achieve that outside of the state or municipal framework. And I think this is something very interesting and challenging, and we are looking forward to see how they will achieve this. We heard that Lithuania has already that experience. We're also having this kind of a test bed, that you will have some kind of unified open data platform that you can contribute your data to. You can use the infrastructure at this data point. You have all of the connections to it, and hopefully it will solve these issues. However, it's of course not that simple for those guys to achieve, and a more detailed story is coming up, as I said, in the third seminar, hopefully. This is my last slide. Sorry for the rainy day picture, but it was yesterday and it was raining in Latvia. So it's being set up as you see here. It's going to look more glamorous once it opens. And I hope that you will have much more in-depth story from the guys who are setting it up. So
okay, thanks a lot, Christoph. Lucky you, one could say. You have rainy days. We are missing that here. So we're moving right to our next project partner. It's Marek Muiste from Tartu Regional Energy Agency. He's the expert on smart city initiatives and will give us the insight from Estonia.
Hello.
Hello, Marek. Now we can see your screen.
Right. So, first of all, I would like to start with zooming out and trying to understand what is the sort of situation in smart city development in Estonia. There are two specific questions that I would like to emphasize, in our context today. And one thing that is very important when we start to talk about the data, especially the private data, is the question of the digital democracy and the advancement that Estonia has been through in last years. So the digital democracy and digital governance has been something, the development has been something that maybe can be called the radical one. We have fully digital governmental system. We can, starting from the different registrations and the different sort of municipal procedures, up to the national and international elections. Everything is happening digitally. Everything is happening using the secure sort of identification platforms, and everything is mobile. So I need my computer, I need my ID card, but other than that, and I need internet connection, but other than that, I can be anywhere in the world and still be able to start the company, be able to start the bank, to do the bank procedures, to do the sort of municipal registrations, to do the elections, etc. So this is something that is fundamentally important because it creates a very unique foundation for user-centered smart city applications. But there is also a question of the privacy, and the same sort of notion also creates quite specific problems, related with the privacy, related with the data that is collected with those digital procedures. So this is what we have to keep in mind when we're talking about digital data, opening the digital data in our context. And the second important issue here, which is also related with the first one, is the question of the data, isolated data silos, which is the tendency, I'm sure everybody, all of you are familiar with that. It's not, our problem these days is not that the data is not collected. The real problem is that the data, even if it is collected, it's quite isolated in sort of specific institutions. And there is, it's quite difficult to get an access to that information, and it's also quite difficult to make the data talk, make data platforms talk with each other. So here's one of the examples of these silos. This is a official user platform of a national electricity provider, Elering, an excellent verifying tool. It can be used for accessing your own consumption data. All the consumption information is digital in Estonia, so everything, every consumer has the access to that platform and their data. Now, unfortunately, as soon as you want to go beyond your own contract, your sort of personal consumption, it's very difficult to get any use out of this platform. Especially when we start to talk about communities, when we start to talk about the municipalities, evaluating the consumption on the sort of these governmental units, it's quite problematic Of course, Tartu Regional Energy Agency, we can do it because we have a big team of experts. We have contacts also in those institutions, and we can pull out some data, but and very useful one. But it still can be hardly described as something, as open. So this is really understood and clear problem also for on national level, and for some time now, Estonian government has tried to sort of bring impetus to the open data movement. Sorry, not the movement itself, but opening the governmental data sets. And there is a specific platform generated, for that, where the governmental data will be sort of opened up. And this has been happening with a very tight cooperation with the third sector. One of the organizations that have supported that very much is the Open Knowledge Estonia. It's an NGO, and also, I mean, it's an activity that really benefits from different experts coming together and supporting the wider process. Now, one of the examples of the municipal level platforms, this is from
last example, please, Marek.
Sorry?
Last example, please, Marek.
Sure. So this is the city portal of Tartu, where the municipality is putting lots of their data about mostly about the mobility and the street lighting, but also this gives an opportunity for the citizens to upload their own data, and the portal is developed as a cross-platform tool to be usable both in the computer, but also on mobile devices, but also on smart screens that we install to our smart buildings as a sort of background application, for example. So I would like to stop here. If you have any questions, I can elaborate further. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Marek. Guess we will come back to that. And last but not least, we're going to Germany. Leon Leuser from Adelphi is working in the Environmental and Sustainability Policy Group, and he will present the German insights. If we can switch the screen sharing. Yeah, here it comes.
Yeah, hello from my side. I'm gonna try to be short as we are already late in time. I'm gonna talk about intermediaries and data platforms in Germany, our topic of today. And now I need to, okay. Intermediaries. So in Germany, there's mainly kind of public companies and private companies active in the field of supporting the implementation of smart city solutions for and open data platforms for municipalities. There are many IT service providers that are corporations under public law. That means that they are the customers, the municipalities are kind of predefined for these IT providers. Big municipalities have their own service providers, but there's also big ones like Ecom21, which is one of the biggest kind of these companies with 500 employees and more than 500 municipalities as their customers in the state of Hesse in Germany. And they are all connected together through a kind of association called Vitaco. in which currently 53 companies are part of, and they serve more than 10,000 municipalities in Germany. On the private side, there's consulting institutes and companies active in the field of supporting smart city solutions, like UI, the Urban Institute, which is a consulting company that is supporting cities in Germany, the EU, and worldwide for the integration of the smart city solutions. With regard to data platforms, there is a standard which was developed in 2017. It was initiated, the process to this standardization by UI and developed together with IT companies such as Microsoft and SAP, energy companies, automotive companies, science institutions, and some front-runner cities like Berlin, Hamburg, Cologne, and Munich. And the standard serves for a reference, is called a reference architecture model for open data, open urban platforms. And it should manage, it should be made, give the cities the opportunity to manage, control, and work with the data they gather in their different services and departments throughout the city. And it should enable efficient exchange and use of this urban data. And thereby the cities are also able to work together with components from different manufacturers who conform to this standard by the German Standardization Institute. Berlin was one of the first cities which established the open data portal in Germany. It has now today more than 2,242 data sets available. And these are used for more than 60 applications, such as mapping applications for mapping crime, public toilets, for mapping names and lakes. For citizen participation, for tree care in public spaces, and for risk management. Other cities with data portals are Hamburg, Munich, Bonn, Bremen, and Frankfurt and Cologne. Another recent development that I want to mention is the Online Access Act, which aims to establish the interoperability of municipal, state, and federal online portals. And until 2022, citizens should be able to access services from all these different levels of government with one online identity. And finally, I brought you the screenshot from the open data portal from the German federal government, where they gather also data from municipalities, state, and the federal state. And here you can see on below for different categories, the data sets that are available there, quite enormous, like for energy, 6,370 data sets, for environment, 15,000 data sets. So it's quite a big, quite a large platform. That's from my side. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Leon, and all the other partners for this very short insight to the 3 countries, giving us some extra discussion points and some insights from various perspectives. We would now like to move on to the panel discussion, and this panel discussion will mainly be compiling the Lithuanian partners. So have a seat in the panel, in the digital panel. And I think we'll start with some of the questions which came in, and we'll start with a more general one, maybe to Julius and Emilia. You are both having or accessing big governmental infrastructures in the energy and the transport sector. And so how easy is this, and how do you actually approach the the public sector when making use of the data, or is there a could you suggest something to the cities and municipalities or the government? How would open innovation and how would the development in your sector be kind of speeded up using the public data? Who would like to start?
I can start. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I think it just takes patience and time as well. But I think to start with, you need to get the buy-in probably from the top management. And I'm really happy that, say, with my top management, they already open for it, and it really helps to open the doors inside the organizations. Because once you start working with the middle management layer, especially, there's more like fears and obstacles, and okay, why we need to do that, and especially, and etc. etc. And I think Emilia can share more examples because they were the first one to start it with. But I think the buy-in is very important, and then of course you need to go and talk with different departments, different people, need to start engaging. But then these organizations need to do some homework as well. For example, let's say in the railways, you go encounter a lot of we call it clean up the yard. We need to do a lot of changes, let's say for the infrastructure, like change IT current systems, because the data doesn't just basically work together with the other, let's say, departments' data. So in order to open up all the things for the public and for all the private sector as well, you need to do some homework. But I think it starts with the mindset changing first. And then that's what we see, like we're starting working now with some success cases, how we can bring this collaboration working, let's say, with the small, medium enterprises and with the big organizations. Then everybody sees the benefits and says, we need this type of things as well in our department.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Emilia, would you like to add on to this?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Julius told. We have, I think, the huge problems with especially when we are the old companies. We have lots of data, and the quality. It's not that good. We have so many different platforms. If data is gathered somewhere. Always, we have one fail story I can share. If we open up one data set, and next week we received a call from our CEO telling this data is incorrect, because in one system the data had one criteria, in other system others. So we had to just remove it fast, and we hope nobody saw it or used it, because it was a lesson for us that we need to make a lot of research within the company before we share it, because it might just be not correct. Yeah. So this is a huge challenge. But I think when companies are cleaning inside, as you was told, and we are just fixing all our bugs. We are creating new platforms for new IT platforms. The data is migrating somewhere. So I think it will help a lot, but the beginning, it's hard to try to start sharing. Even though everybody agrees that there is a huge advantages, still when you need to share it, to prepare it, it's very difficult. But from them, we receive a lot of inquiries from universities, from startups about the data. So we see the potential, and we really try to stick to this idea and to fix these problems, even though they are not going as fast as we would like. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Emilia, I would move on to Vidmantas also with a similar question. I mean, if I understood your digital innovation hub, it's more in an intermediate position. You're running a lot of projects and building solutions, also in other countries. But you're, let's say, in the middle of the data provider and the data implementing users in other places. So how is this from your perspective, and especially in the international projects you were talking about? Is this a specific challenge?
Yes, of course, it's a specific challenge. You know, of course, we need to use all the rules regarding the information which we're receiving from third sites and so on. It's really not easy, but it's very important, you know, to develop all our society in general, because data is a king. I think already everybody here is understanding that, but because on the data we can really make a really very serious prognosis about the future, about the movement of the people, of course, about the all energy resources which we're using in different time. Yes, the main challenge is, of course, to receive this data and to receive this data from the different sources. Unfortunately, all Europe is still not very digitalized. And we can say, for example, if you will talk about the municipalities, especially the smaller municipalities, they really everything mostly in the, let's say in the Baltic states, mostly they're doing by hand, and it's no connected things, what we could say, okay, what was, I will be more added to the energy side, okay, not in general, but more about the things which we know. Let's say what kind of lighting they're provided, what, how many megawatt hours they spent on the lighting inside the cities, how many megawatts was spent for the public societies, schools, and so on and so on. And we try to collect everything, this data by the hand, and then to make some similarities and prognosis to balancing the energy, yeah, because I think the future of the energy is really smart energy. Yeah? It's not stable one source as it was in the past, you know, it's nuclear power station, coal station, or just oil heat stations which produce the energy and the heating, but it's a volatile market with renewables. And to collect all this data to the one and to solve the problems, it's really very difficult at that current situation. But more and more, while let's say it's really Baltic states trend to be more digitalized on each things, you know, of course, colleagues in Estonia are leading in some parts, Lithuania try to be at the same time with the energy. And we hope in the future we will solve these questions, how to collect all this data and to share this data, because we need to change the data to understand about our consumers and prosumers in general, you know, how they're thinking, how they're doing, to assist in most efficient and cheapest way, and of course green way. Yeah, I think would be very nice to try to receive unnamed data, you know, to have some law under the inside European Union, under the European Commission, how to receive this data, because the faster we will receive the data from the different sources, the faster we will offer the solution, and we will save some money. And of course, CO2 emissions we will save. I think it's our main challenges now. That means must be new laws, unnamed laws, and unnamed data law, which could help all of our countries to go faster to the future.
Okay, thanks a lot. I would come back to one issue. It's actually presented by Julius and Emilia, the sandboxes. Try to innovate, try to bring in new ideas also from the outside, and offer your infrastructure, offer your processes, open innovation processes in these sandboxes. You mentioned, of course, startups and small companies to join in, but how about other institutions, bigger companies or small municipalities? How open, or how is it possible for those to cooperate?
Sure, I can start. So we open, you know, for the large enterprises as well. And it just maybe for us is too easy sometimes to refer startups and SMEs. Normally, large enterprises, they have maybe the, you know, testing facilities. They have this relationship with these big organizations. So for them, it's easier, you know, to get this kind of testing environment. Not necessarily, but in some cases, and especially for the startups and SMEs, it's really to go and find these, you know, the right doors where you can open up and start testing is sometimes harder. That's why we created, you know, this agency, so we can be the bridge. But we're completely open for their big organizations, large enterprises as well, as long as it's new and innovative. Really open, you know, to hear it, to see it, to learn it, you know, and maybe we can do the testing, the pilots all together. So it's completely fine.
Okay.
I would like to share my opinion as well. For us, the detection which solution is innovative, which is not, sometimes gets tricky, especially when big companies launches new products. So because our sandbox, it's already for 2 years, especially in DSO, where there's technological solutions, devices, it gets tricky, but we see a great value in that as well. We had 32 applications in our sandbox program. A few of them were Huawei, Siemens, and I think even more few big players. So for us, it was still very beneficial. Still for them, it was very beneficial. So we are open for all kinds of possible projects. We have students working on bachelor degrees in the sandbox. We have startups, we have big companies, we have international companies. And I think we had companies from 7 different countries for now, because maybe because it's energy sector, the DSO part, it's very interesting for them to try, because it's not so easy sometimes to find specific technological devices they could try on.
Thanks a lot. So all participants, you have heard the invitation also from outside Lithuania. Join in and test your ideas maybe on the Lithuanian market. Gabriele, in your overview on the MUS, you mentioned also about the open data platform and the combination of what is needed, process skills, people and systems. What would you say in the public sector? What are the biggest challenges? Is it the skills, the processes? How would you interpret this?
Thank you for the question. I think that the biggest challenge is that public sector still doesn't have enough of information and knowledge about the value of open data, and why it's necessary for cities or at national level. Also, there is a huge problem with human resources, with professionals who could help public sector just to be innovative, you know, and open their data in a proper way. So that would be like a sum up from a public sector.
Thanks a lot, Gabriele. Coming from the public once more to the private sector, Vidmantas, what would you say? How open is the private sector, or where are the barriers or the red lines on that side?
Regarding the private sector, of course, some things are a little bit more easier. If we'll talk about the public sector, it's really a lot of restrictions which they're using. With a private sector, it's easier than with a public sector. And I think that knowledge is very important, what everybody would understand what is the data, where we are moving, what we are doing, what we are trying to do, you know. And of course, in general, I'm happy about Lithuania, about especially telecommunication providers, because the biggest movement data and the biggest consumers trends and directions we personally receive now from the telecommunication, because we can make some adjustments, we can make some plans at what time people stay at the same places regarding the energy issues, you know, I mean, yeah, what kind of energy we could deliver to the special place, when the price for electricity is highest during the morning and evening peaks, and so on, you know. That's mean at that current situation, telecommunication sector, it's most advanced and most fastest moving, and they're supporting us. I mean the mobile service providers and so on. Most of them are private. The biggest side of them are private only. And of course, exchange data with another countries is very important, because Baltic states is really small nations, and we have more or less the same similarities, you know, inside the people characters, how they spend the energy, how they use the money, how they use the mobility. Of course, we need the bigger data, because I think bigger data from another countries, as I mentioned before, from Scandinavia, because it would be easier for us to make a forecast for our countries, how we will move in 5-6 years, you know, because there is some differences. We still try to catch Western Europe on some things, and I hope and I think we're doing this quite good, but could be better as always. That means would be very important for the private sector to share more, let's say, this data, as I said before, unnamed data, to be more progress, to do this faster. Yeah, but with private sector, more or less everything is fine, especially telecommunications. They understand these thoughts, they understand why we're asking that. It's very difficult, of course, with public sector, because it's sometimes very difficult to explain why we need this data from the, for example, from the train Lithuanian train system. You know, how many people is moving inside. We need this data, you know, just to calculate the movements and so on for the energy. But it's sometimes we receive the answer no, because it's under protection and so on. Yeah, I don't know if it was the right question. Yeah, should I explain this correctly?
Thanks a lot,
Yes.
Vismantas,
Okay.
for the insights, especially saying that telecommunication is understood it better than maybe other
yes, it's a key driver
industries.
now.
Julius, what would you say? You are just up and running for 1 year now. You have already some sectors from your field or some examples where you have a very proactive public engagement, and some cases where you say, this was just easy to set up and get going.
Okay, it's not easy to set up and going, but we did a success story. I mean, we did the case, as I mentioned, like, you know, the pilot just by the end of last year with the Lithuanian Post and the startup called the City City. We're just about to launch a couple more startups now with Lithuanian Railways. One of them is going to be the Swedish startup. They're going to do like artificial intelligence, like, you know, some, you know, predictions, some forecasting, and the other will be regarding just sustainability issues. But it's not easy, you know, to set it up. Of course, it takes time and patience, you know, just to go understand first the challenge and then go and find the correct partner. But I would say, or maybe the advice, especially for the peers, you know, don't try to put everything to the right, you know, order, like, you know, just to try think all the, you know, the issues. I would say be more agile, go and do testing, go and do piloting, and then you're going to learn. And even just coming back to this, you know, success story, like, you know, the pilot with the startup and the Lithuanian Post, we even didn't start implementing all the IT systems, because otherwise, you know, it would take probably like, you know, months or maybe even years just to get ready for this pilot. In some cases, you know, just do more, like, you know, less is more. I think it's very good advice. So we then decided to not to go and do any implementation of the IT system, which is the very plain, you know, piloting thing, you know, just take the parcels, deliver to the customers, and then we can do some learnings and maybe get some data about it, and then you can do some predictions and analysis afterwards. So don't think, you know, that is very complicated. Let's say my system is not, you know, solved yet by the time we're gonna do. Now, be agile, go and learn, and then even if you fail, you're gonna learn about it, and then you can start piloting, you know, the other things, etc.
Very good, thank you. There's one more question to Emilia, to how you use AI in the Ignitis group. Have you any ideas about integrating this in your innovation group?
We had one specific pilot with AI. We piloted drones or unmanned vehicles for overhead line defection. Because for now, this process on how we are defecting, it's quite old school. People are going through with cars through the woods, they go by foot. So we were trying the new way how we could to identify the possible threats in advance. So we used AI, and it was quite a successful pilot. But for now, for us, it's just too expensive. We calculated that the accuracy of this AI was quite good for us, but we tried French startup. But for us, their pricing was not yet good enough, and we are looking forward in the future in using this. I think artificial intelligence for the specific, for example, project. But for now, we are trying new technologies. Now we are trying LiDAR technology to identify these threats.
Thanks a lot. Good to hear. You are aware of it, you're working with it. You mentioned also some first examples from the sandboxes, Emilia, and you said that we have to be aware of quality issues, safety, and confidentiality. So would you have an example from open data usage from your sandbox projects?
From our sandbox project, I would say that from 50% of sandbox applications, we cannot work with them. Either the applicant asks for something that we don't have, or we have it, but we are not able to share it. GDPR is a huge issue for us because all the consumption data, it's owned by the consumer. And we, even if we would like to, even if the consumer would like us to work with it, we need to get the permission, but we cannot approach the consumer to receive the permission. So it gets tricky in some cases. Regarding the open data, for example, if you, Lithuania is quite small. If you divide it by the regions, you can sometimes see specific consumption of the specific object. So if we see this threat, we think that we cannot go through the to open this data. We have our internal process, and we are checking every data set with a lot of internal experts, with law, with the GDPR, with IT security, with national security, with grid security. So it's quite a complex. Each time, each project is quite complex, but we try to find for each question a solution. And with sandbox projects, so we are trying to find maybe one client who already had the agreement to share his data or something. We are always trying to, or maybe to shift the startup or the company on where we can collaborate. So we are always trying to look for new ways, and sometimes we succeed with that. So each one is really different, but it's.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for these insights to your sandbox projects. I would like to ask Gabriele, coming back to the myth you mentioned. What is the citizens' perspective? I mean, we heard about privacy issues, we heard about data quality, but we also heard from Marek about digital democracy. So how would you how would you say the situation is in Lithuania from the citizens' perspective? Gabriele, can you hear me?
So
okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I think that in Lithuania, people now are concerned about their data because we have those legal restrictions and legal requirements for data opening. And so I think that it would be more complicated for private sector and for public sector to open it. So yeah, so even if we have a lot of, not a lot of, but we have a few examples where a few platforms that open data. So as a users, how to say it, citizens can use it, and not only citizens, but and researchers and other sectors. So very shortly just.
Okay, thank you. Coming to the last round, I would say, if there are no other questions in the chat, maybe to Julius and Vidmantas. The topic of today was about between public and private and how far the mediation can go. So would you like to share something on good or bad examples that this at some point you had to stop, like also Emilia just mentioned from some of the sandbox projects, to say we had to step out of these initiatives. So any experiences from your side?
I don't know who could start, Julius or me. I could start a little bit shortly, you know, to explain. Yes, exactly, Frank. We have the positive and negative information from both sides, from private sector. In general, of course, private sector sometimes is much more easier to communicate with the private sector because it's a matter of the money, matter of the cost of data. You know, we could pay for that things and we could receive this data. But of course, it would be nice to receive this data cheaper and to have the law to exchange this law as we discussed previous. With a public sector, it's they're really very restricted by the law and they couldn't share this information. I would say so 70% of the data which we need, unfortunately, we are not receiving at all. Yeah, of course, somebody don't understand the GDPR laws and why it was done, and if it's without the personal data, you could share this by this law, but everybody wants to be very, how to say, safe, and they keep this information just because they're afraid to make some mistakes. It's in general, and yeah, positive things as we discussed. It's very open with the telecommunications because they understand this law. They have the lawyers which explain this, what this helps improve to exchange the data between us, because then maybe some telecommunication companies could install in some places especially things for the energy consumption to check and so on and so on. It's a lot of possibility partnership. Of course, I would like to more talk with the public sector, you know, to be more transparent, more open and share these data. And what we need to do, what they would be more flexible and more open. Yeah, this would be my wishes. In general, this would give really big step forward to develop our communities.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I can just add on to basically what Vidman says, and I would say that's completely correct. You know that the public sector is really afraid to give the data, and then for them it's just easier to say no, we cannot give the data. You know, it's very protective, it's a governmental, it's security, etc., etc. But in most cases, when you go and start digging, you know, so why is it really exactly really secured? You see that basically the middle management people, they just basically afraid to make the mistake. They don't understand the value they can get, or maybe they can provide to the city, even the public, or maybe to other companies. So there's a big gap, I would say, just for understanding. And then basically there are not that many maybe legislation ways, you know, how you can really open up the data. You know, is it really correct? Is it not? And everybody is afraid now. GDPR. We even sometimes go and challenge you, what is GDPR? Where do you see the data? So please, you know, remove the names, and then maybe we can provide these passengers data, you know, because we really try to to get this data even for the hackathon. Say, no, we cannot give the data. So remove the names, remove, you know, their personal data, and then the rest of the data is completely fine. Okay, and it takes time, you know, to go and basically go and talk with these people just to explain the benefits and how we can really, you know, push it forward. I think once more and more we see maybe the good examples that, you know, somebody opened up the data and maybe they used, you know, for the benefit, and maybe somebody created, you know, the new startup, new solution, you know, they really helped it. I think then people will start really understanding the value of it. From the good side, you know, I mentioned this example already, the startup, you know, the Lithuanian Post and Zita City. So the Zita City co-founder said that, you know, they were really impressed that, you know, they were managed, you know, to launch this pilot in like 2 weeks time, 2-3 weeks time. So that's really, really fast, you know, when you're comparing to working with the public sector companies. So the challenge we are facing, especially that, you know, there's a myth that, you know, these big organizations are very, very slow and, you know, complex and robust, and it's really going to be hard. So there are some really good parts that maybe you can really go and make the change working much faster. But of course, in many cases, it's not, and I still agree. But we need to go and talk. And regarding the good cases and some maybe success stories, there's just a little sneak peek. So we're currently working for the road maintenance company and the open data governmental portal, and hopefully a bit later we're gonna provide the open data map, like for the old roads and the conditions. So even maybe we'll see, how maybe the new startups are gonna, come up, like, just let's say, for example, for the drivers, maybe say, okay, this road 20 kilometers is gonna be very icy for you, so be careful, etc., etc. Because they already have this data inside, for their personal use, like, which roads they need to clean first, which need to de-ice, and etc. So they want to go and open up this data for the public, for the good use, and hopefully we'll see these benefits coming up afterwards. So I think we're going there, but it's just not maybe that fast as probably everybody would like to be.
But that's good to hear. Thanks a lot. That there are still challenges, of course, but a lot of potentials are seen and taken by initiatives like yours. Sivile, would you like to bring in a last question or note as our host of today before we wrap up?
Cannot think of anything. Well,
Too much input.
We had a question that was not answered, maybe about the myth that Gabriele presented. Maybe each of you could say which myth prevails most that you have to deal with when you work with the public sector. That would be interesting.
Okay, who starts?
I can start. I think it just, as I mentioned a couple of times already, that people are really afraid to open up the data. They really want to be more secure in order to make the mistake. And then in some cases, they miss these opportunities and how they can be delivered the value. I would say this is the biggest challenge in the public sector right now.
Thank you.
I would agree with a bit with Julius and would maybe go further that people are afraid to share their either as a data or as an idea or it's a new project. We sometimes just think that if we share it with somebody will steal it and we will get I don't know we will lose something. But I think generally if you share it, you may have a bigger value because you may find partners who are working on that and you can save a lot of costs and you can create a bigger service product or something.
Okay, thanks. And last but not least, Mantas.
To say true, I need to leave to another meeting. I'm very sorry, guys. Yeah, it was really very interesting. I just want to say a big thank you for possibility to stay here. I have the connection with the Japanese companies and it's very late time of them. Thank you very much. It was really interesting.
No
and in general, I'm very happy, what so many young people are inside that. And I think, of course, it not depends on the age, but the more younger generation is moving there, the more open they are and the more data we'll receive in the future. I'm very happy to see so many young faces there, and was very nice to meet colleagues, and I hope we could share more information between, let's say, public sector and private sector. And if you need us as a smart energy in the future, we are really open to share all our information based on Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland energy systems, which we know, inside, with railway systems, with public transport systems, let's say, because we need to do this much more faster, and we can faster try to catch the bigger our neighbors from the west, which is a little bit have in some cases step forward than we. I would like to say thank you for the Frank, and I need to leave. I'm very sorry, guys. Yeah.
No problem. We are at the end anyway, or at least also time-wise. So I guess to sum up, there is some awareness raising needed on maybe the citizen side, but also on the public side. Definitely also on the other sides, but more on these two, I guess, to show the potentials, and maybe some co-creation would be helpful to bring in all the actors needed. And yeah, let's see if this webinar, the first one of this series, was helpful for you. We would like to sum up with a little poll about was this useful for you? Did this give you some insight, some experiences, which is maybe relevance for your own municipality, organization, company, your projects? That would be helpful for us to know. And this looks very good. Thanks to all the speakers from Lithuania and also from the partners. Thanks to Civile and her team for setting up the whole program. And yeah, I think we can say that this was very useful for our participants. Good to know. Thank you for posing the questions. And we would like to share also the last slide with the program of the next webinars. This time it's not next week, but we continue already this week on Friday with the second session on the use of open data to create climate-friendly innovations. And then next week, the third one on this series on Wednesday about transition towards openness. Okay, so we are at the end of today, and yeah, thanks to all the participants, to all the partners for this webinar, and hear and see you hopefully all on Friday. And feel free to spread the word and invite some more colleagues.